Zelensky is refusing to back down despite mounting pressure, pushing Putin closer to what many fear is a point of no return. Ukrainian Flamingo missiles are raining down on Russian military sites, sending a clear message to the Kremlin. Putin's army has responded with a massive barrage of more than 200 drones and missiles across multiple fronts. Ukraine is now targeting Russia's oil infrastructure and historic landmarks, prompting a furious backlash from Moscow. We can see that the Kyiv regime has begun to attack history, but history cannot be defeated. Just as we cannot be made to forget this history, such attacks only serve to underline the justice of our cause in our struggle for the Russian regions. This struggle will end in victory. Will Russia's next act of revenge become the deadliest strike of the war so far? The Kremlin's response is being watched closely. Tensions between Moscow and Kyiv surged sharply as Ukraine ramped up long-range attacks deep inside Russian territory. On June 10th, Ukraine acknowledged using FP-5 Flamingo missiles in strikes targeting Russian military assets. Volodymyr Zelensky claimed the Flamingo missiles successfully struck key Russian military facilities with precision. The Ukrainian operation targeted a facility in Cheboksary that reportedly housed critical military infrastructure. According to reports, the Russian site contained satellite navigation receivers and components for missiles and drones, and was set ablaze. 3 people were reportedly injured in the aftermath of the Ukrainian strikes in Cheboksary. The Ukrainian president also outlined details of additional operations targeting Russia's oil infrastructure. Zelensky said, and I quote, "We continue to apply Ukrainian long-range sanctions against Russian military facilities and the oil industry." In particular, last night Ukrainian FP-5 Flamingos struck a military plant in Cheboksary that supplies the occupiers' army with components for drones and missiles. I thank the armed forces of Ukraine for their precision. The Kyiv oil refinery in the Samara region was also hit last night. The distance from the front line is more than 900 kilometers. I am grateful to the warriors of the Special Operations Forces, the Unmanned Systems Forces, and the Defense Intelligence of Ukraine. The entirely just responses of the Security Service of Ukraine also reached 2 oil infrastructure facilities in the Vladimir region, at a distance of 700 kilometers. I thank everyone who fights and works for Ukraine. End quote. In Samara Oblast, Kyiv struck the Kyiv oil refinery, located more than 900 kilometers from the front line. Russia's Samara oil facility processes approximately 3.7 million tons of oil annually and remains a critical energy asset. 2 additional oil facilities in Russia's Vladimir Oblast were also reportedly targeted by Ukrainian forces. Fires were allegedly reported at both oil plants following the drone attacks carried out by Ukraine. Meanwhile, the Kremlin condemned another Ukrainian strike targeting an iconic museum in Sevastopol. According to reports, historic artwork was lost in the blaze that followed the attack on the museum.
Last night, a drone strike virtually destroyed the siege of Sevastopol Museum. The museum building has been damaged. The strike was deliberate. Is the president's reaction to this known? And does the Kremlin share the view of the Sevastopol governor and museum staff that it should be restored, as was done following the damage in 1942?
We can see that the Kyiv regime has begun to attack history, but history cannot be defeated. Just as we cannot be made to forget this history, such attacks only serve to underline the justice of our cause in our struggle for the Russian regions. This struggle will end in victory. This ruined site, so important in terms of symbolism and historical significance, will be restored and will be even more beautiful than before. Russia now appears firmly on a war path after Ukraine's repeated strikes against critical energy infrastructure. Russia's defense ministry claimed it shot down 326 Ukrainian drones across 19 regions on June 10th. Ukrainian drones operating over Russian-controlled Crimea and the Black Sea were also reportedly intercepted. In retaliation, Russia launched a fresh wave of missile attacks across Ukraine during the night of June 10th. The Russian strikes reportedly killed 6 civilians and injured 10 others across multiple regions of Ukraine. A new assault targeting Ukraine's regional hub of Kharkiv was also launched by Russia on June 10th. Russia additionally unleashed 207 drones against Ukraine, striking 14 locations in a sweeping retaliatory operation. Vladimir Putin has stated that Oreshnik has not yet been used in the full sense against Ukraine, implying that its most advanced or heaviest configurations remain unused on the battlefield. On June 4th, during an interaction with reporters, he went further than before, revealing fresh combat information about how and when Oreshnik has actually been employed. He also disclosed that Russia is actively developing new strike systems as the Ukraine war escalates, signaling an ongoing effort to diversify and upgrade Moscow's arsenal.
Yes, Western sponsors supply a large number of drones of various types, including long-range. Unfortunately, some of them break through, but Russia has an anti-aircraft defense system. Yes, we have to improve it. Yes, we have to strengthen it, and we will do it. But Ukraine does not have such a system at all. There are just separate elements, but there's no system. There are Patriot, other systems, which are not enough, but there's no system. There are no strike systems which the Russian Federation has. I mean hypersonic missiles, cruise missiles, and naval, aerial, and ground-based missiles. And there is something else that is the most important. There is patriotism in the will of the Russian people, which is a main condition for us to achieve all the goals and objectives of a special military operation. In the list of issues that I consider important, it would certainly be necessary to mention another circumstance. This is the presence of our own production, resource, scientific and personnel base to solve all the tasks to strengthen the armed forces of the Russian Federation. And this is strengthened every month. And, of course, it is the basis of all those achievements and successes that I have just mentioned. Therefore, to sum up, I would add this. We are, of course, ready and want to negotiate with Ukraine through peaceful means, and on the basis of what we discussed at the meeting with President Trump in Anchorage. And then certain demands were made of Russia, with a view to us being able to make certain compromises. And Russia agrees to these compromises, which we discussed in Anchorage. The Ukrainian side must also agree to these compromises, and the conflict will quickly come to its natural conclusion. As for our new systems, they are being deployed. This applies to Oreshnik as well. This is somewhat different from what we did in the past, before the conflict in the Ukrainian direction. What do I mean? After all, we tested similar systems at firing ranges, but we didn't test the Oreshnik, and that isn't combat use. In fact, there was not a single combat deployment of the Oreshnik across Ukraine, in the full sense of the word. And to be honest, I'll let you in on a major military and state secret. We simply struck where it was convenient to see the results. This applies to the Belaya Tsurkov, and even more so it concerns a DPR area in the perimeter of the main fortified area. Then our drones flew in there, into the shed that we hit, and just looked at how the decomposing blocks were laid. We counted to the millimeter where everything was. For us, it is important to make decisions in the future about the full-fledged use of Oreshnik for the intended purposes, including in the area of urban construction.
Russia, by Putin's own account, first used Oreshnik against Ukraine in November 2024 and then again in January 2026, marking two early test cases for the weapon in live combat. The most recent use came on May 23rd to 24th, when Oreshnik strikes were launched against Kyiv, causing massive damage in and around the Ukrainian capital. Putin's revelations land at the same time as a senior Russian minister issues a sinister nuclear threat, tying the future of Oreshnik to Moscow's broader nuclear signaling toward the West. Sergei Ryabkov specifically warned Ukraine and its Western allies against any aggressions toward Russia, hinting that such actions could provoke a catastrophic response. He made these remarks on June 3rd on the sidelines of the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum, using an economic showcase to deliver a strategic warning. Sergei Ryabkov said, and I quote, "As regards us, those hypothetical extreme situations that may trigger the use of these weapons were outlined in detail in Russia's military doctrine and the fundamentals of Russia's state policy on nuclear deterrence. To put it somewhat straightforwardly, these documents send a signal that encroachments on Russia or its territorial integrity by aggressors, including those who may possess such weapons, could prompt us to use these weapons in the worst-case scenario." End quote. His warning came as Ukrainian drones struck both energy and military sites in St. Petersburg on June 3rd, linking the nuclear rhetoric directly to fresh attacks on Russian soil.